Hello to our pro tips for architects and bike room planners about modern bike room design by my bike valet. This is to make your life easier. Bike rooms come in all shapes and sizes. For example, this one, an old product, doesn't support a lot of different bike types well, and at capacity, it looks horrible. Whereas here, modern products, well designed, look well organized even at capacity. This is future-proof. Now, let's look at the early phases of a typical project. The most basic question we get asked is, how much space do I need for X number of bikes? This takes us about 30 seconds to answer in both empirical and metric. We'll give you a range from a theoretical minimum to a real-life average from our project statistics. Eventually, we'll land on the following question. I have the following space available. What can we do here? Here's what we do. We'll ask you about the location and the use case. So, is it a mountain resort or a downtown office building? This gives us an idea of the expected bike mix and also which city or state guidelines we need to consider. Then we'll ask you about space dimensions, obstacles in the room, and constraints like overhead stuff. This will allow us to narrow down the bike rack types for consideration. All of this info will feed into our bike room calculator. The result of this exercise will ideally be several layout options, potentially with different rack orientations, gross bike count, and overall density. This allows us to evaluate the options with pros and cons, create a high-level budget, and present results for a first round of discussion. It's also important to know your clients, meaning your bikes. If you think a bicycle is a bicycle, that's not true from the perspective of a bike room. There are different bike types, and you ideally accommodate the different and most popular ones. Let's have a closer look at the four most popular bike types. We have the general commuter bike, sometimes as an electric bike. There is the long-tail cargo with, for example, 1 or 2 child seats on the back and with a pannier rack in the front, usually as an electric bike, which needs to be charged from time to time. Also, a long-tail cargo can be quite heavy. There are road and gravel bikes, usually quite light and not very space-hungry. And there are fat bikes which often come with 4-inch wide tires. These different bike types can be significantly different in key properties such as length, height, width, weight, tire size, and having electric assist or not. All of these properties eventually impact their compatibility with bike rack types. Now, let's briefly take a look at the most fundamental question, as some of you tasked with planning a bike room might not be cyclists. Why spend money on bike racks in the first place? A modern bike rack is very space efficient. Without it, you simply need to provide more floor space, which is very expensive in an urban location. There are a couple of common sense, technical reasons as well. A modern bike rack provides lean-on support, locking option, scratch protection, and some even offer power supply to charge e-bikes or e-scooters in place. Fun fact, the cost of electricity for people with an average bike commute to work is about $1 or euro per month. And finally, there is the rhetorical question of aesthetics. Which one of these two do you prefer?
Take your time.
Let's finally look at some bike rack types, actually our recommended selection. At the top is a 2-level or 2-tier. It is important that it has a lift-assisted upper level. The second one is our vertical lift-assisted rack, very space-efficient, actually as space-efficient as the 2-level rack. Number 3 is a very interesting one. It is a bike and scooter combo rack with lean-on bar to provide safe and scratch-free 3-point contact. You can park bike and or scooters in it. Fourth row is the most versatile bike rack, known as inverted U or staple or lean-on bar. And finally, at the bottom, the scooter rack, which works only for scooters. Here we have a single-page summary comparing the 4 different bike rack types of our recommended selection. The high-level categories are bike type compatibility, space efficiency, and an assortment of other criteria. The underlying details of our evaluation are available upon request. For us, it was natural that we evaluated the lower level separately from the upper level of a 2-level rack. Once you use them, it becomes quite clear why we did that. For us, the top performer combining high bike type compatibility and high space efficiency is actually the vertical lift-assisted bike rack, often ideal for the 80% portion of projects. However, each project is different, and depending where your priorities lie, the result may be different. Let's discuss the next question around bike racks, monoculture, or mix of bike racks. We recommend applying an 80-20 rule of thumb, meaning I'd all use a mix of different bike rack types to best accommodate a broader bike type portfolio. Remember the 4 different most popular bike types which we discussed before. So ideally 80% of the capacity is delivered by racks with a focus on high space efficiency, broad bike type fit, great user experience, and finally upgradability to make the bike room future-proof. Applying where we compared bike rack types half a minute ago, these 2 are the typical racks for this task. For the remaining 20% of the capacity, you want to use the most flexible rack types like these 2 shown here. If you can then also leave some flex space without bike racks to accommodate large cargo bikes or tricycles for cyclists with disabilities. Finally, a quick overview of our bike room calculator. It was developed by our group as a rapid prototyping tool for bike rooms, which eliminates detailed drawings in early phases. The calculator uses the 4 most common bike rack types: 2-level, vertical, front wheel with lean-on, and inverted U. For each rack type, it has 2 parameter sets, meaning standard and tight for rack spacing, aisle width, and height. It has a library of layout combinations built in, and as such can mix different rack types into one configuration. Besides spatial configuration, it also determines gross count and density results. For a rectangular or almost rectangular room, it can take literally 5 minutes to come up with the first set of options. Here comes a real-life example done with our bike room calculator. The task at hand seems simple enough. It is a space, 33 feet wide and 80 feet deep with access at the short end at the bottom. The first pass lined up the bike racks parallel to the long wall. Here you see one of the configurations proposed: monoculture of 2-level bike racks, 1 row as single-sided, the second row as double-sided. After refinement to add the aisle in front of the double-sided, it shows 314 bike spots. So far we spent less than 10 minutes, so let's continue. In the next pass, we change the orientation of the racks in the calculator tool and combine 2 results from the pass into this option. After some refinement, this option shows 235 bike spots, 3 different rack types: 2-level, vertical, and front wheel with lean-on plus additional flex space. This is much more in line with an 80-20 approach and offers a much better user experience than option 1. At this point, we are approaching 25 minutes in total. Based on these 2 different orientation options, we use the calculator to go through different variations and end up with a total of 6 presentable options from 235 to 336 bike spots. All of these options will work, but some are tighter spaced than others. In total, we spent shy of 1 hour on working out these 6 options. What comes now is to put this into a format with pros and cons so that it can be discussed with the customer for decision-making. Afterwards, and only then, we do the detailed drawings of 1 or 2 options as per the customer's request. We find that with the efficiency of our bike room calculator tool, we can be more creative exploring different options. Before we let you go, just a quick mention of our service offering. Our teams consist of dedicated cyclists and offer professional bike room planning for architects and project planners tasked with bike rooms. Asking us for help in early phases is free of an obligation. For commercial projects, we offer the full suite of services from planning, budgeting, project management, white glove installation to subsequent maintenance. With our partners, we cover Europe, the US, and Canada. Please don't hesitate to contact us with any questions. For all other countries, we are looking for partners who fit our profile.